models, a subject that most people don't talk about really. It's a hobby for most, and for some it's just not. In this informative speech, we are going to talk about models and where you begin on one and how you're really going to finish one. First thing I like to do, and I find out to be the hardest part of a model, is picking out which one you want to find. Depending on what you like to build or what your favorite kind of car is, it really just depends which model you're going to get. For me, I like older cars, as you can see, and sometimes I like newer cars. When it comes to competition, you want to choose a model with more detail. That's why I like to choose older cars, because older cars have a lot more working components in them that you can see, whereas the newer cars nowadays have more plastic components. So first thing I like to do is I go online or go to your local store and find your model. You can pick out anything you want, really anything your style. For instance, let's say this. I chose my Nissan GTR. This is an R34 GTR, one of my favorite cars, probably my favorite car, to be honest. I chose this on Amazon. Roughly, they cost about $60 a model, if not some more, some less, depends how rare they are. This one here, I ordered a model from a kit. It comes in this box here. It'll come in this box. What you do, you get this box, and the pieces will come in a thing like this. A little bitty grid of all your pieces. There'll be instructions in the box. Let's see what you think of this. Here are the instructions for the box. On top you'll have the instructions, then you'll have packages of pieces below. Come in like this. The pieces will come like this. What I like to do first is, if I'm going to paint all the same color, I will prime them all first in the grids. Makes it a lot easier when it comes to priming. You don't have to hold every single piece. So I like to do this right here. Now, if this could be your option, or whatever, how you're going to paint it, I'll sometimes paint the pieces, if you can see that. I'll paint the pieces in the actual grid themselves. When it comes to cutting them out, it makes it a lot easier, a lot less time consuming. Really, it depends on how you're going to paint it, everything like that. But I would say the hardest part of a model is first picking it out. Second, which I would say is the most time consuming part, is getting the model prepped for paint and sanding it. For competitions, I like to wet sand my model sometimes, make it smooth. These two here have also been in competitions. This one has gotten first place. This one's got first place too. This one is state. This one going to, but I didn't send it because packaging reasons. It makes it, I don't know, it's kind of hard. But anyways, sanding it, when you cut a piece out of the grid, I like to use a clippers. This will get you as close as possible to the piece and a lot less sanding as possible. So I'll come in here and I'll cut this, and then I'll usually grab sandpaper or a sanding file, and I will file down the spot where it connects to the grid. But if you don't do that, it'll leave a ridge on your piece, basically sticking up where you have to sand it all flat. Really, when it comes to competitions, judges will look for that part of the model just to see how much work you've done. After I've sanded and prepped my model, first thing we'll do, if you haven't primed it already, I will prime it and sand the primer again. Make sure your primer's smooth. You don't want no bubbles, no imperfections in it, anything like that. For me, I like to do the body part last. This here, I haven't. This is an older model I got from my buddy. This one was actually orange, and I brought it home and actually stripped it down and painted it. This took about, I don't know, probably 3 weeks to strip it down and paint it. There was a lot of hard paint on there from just setting on there, so I did that. But for me, because of the competitions now, I used to use spray paint. This will work. I buy Tamiya. This is a Japanese paint. It lays down really well. You really want a paint that's going to lay thin, whereas some paints, like some Walmart brand paints, will actually lay thicker, and it's not as much control as you need. For primer, I still use spray paint primer because it goes on thin. Same brand as this. It goes on thin, lays smooth, and doesn't really bubble up or like give reflections really well. With painting, some guys will use this still. Every once in a while I will. On the bottom of a body, I will because it gives more texture. And usually on the bottom of my models, because I do competitions now, I do replicas. These cars here are replicas. This is a replica of my great uncle's truck. This is a replica of a GTR in California right now, which is actually my favorite car and would love to have it someday. But when it comes to painting, I use airbrush. With airbrush, it's a lot more like real painting because when you're in a paint booth and you're actually painting a real car, you have one of those air guns that sprays a good amount of paint one time. Where airbrush is the same way, but it's also a smaller scale. So when airbrushing comes, it don't come in a thing like this. It's a big compressor. So I have this big compressor that I plug my airbrush in. I screw it on, pump it up, and with airbrush you can adjust your PSI, how much paint you want to come out. Whereas with a paint can, you really can't judge how much paint's going to come out and how you're going to do that. With airbrush, you can do that. So my paint comes in a small tube like this right here. This is just straight paint. You dump this in the top of the airbrush, and you mix it. Make sure it's shook up and mixed really well because all the hardener goes to the bottom and makes for a bad experience. Believe me, I've been there. But I can do this, and then when it comes to clear coating, I still today use clear coat from a can. I don't know why. I've tried using clear coat from an airbrush. It lays smooth still, but I've got so many awards from competitions with models, especially these two, with just spray on clear coat. It works amazing, and I've had nothing wrong with it because you can sand it, wet sand it, anything. Usually on models, it depends what I want to do. But with paint, I'll usually do 2 coats of primer, 1 sanded. I'll put another coat on or sand it again, make sure it's all smooth. With paint, if I'm doing paint out of a can, I'll do about 3 coats of paint, just make sure I got good coverage. But when it comes to airbrushing, I do about 7 coats of paint because it goes on so thin and so fine that you want to do enough coats where you got good coverage, or if you sand it, you're not going to sand through your paint. With clear coat, about 3 to 5, that's rough range right there. It depends how much you want. Some models are like flat, like this one. This one's like flat, this one's like glossy. It just really depends. After you're done painting, you want to let your paint dry. You never want to touch your paint because you get fingerprints in it, imperfections, and it just takes a nightmare to get it out. With these, I waited probably about a week for the paint to set up. So really, this is a time-consuming project. You don't really want to rush it. Rushing will cause imperfections. With this model here, being it's a replica of my grand uncle's truck, I took a lot of pictures. It's best to have pictures of the actual thing you're replicating than to not have any at all. For judges, fine details, that will win you big. With this thing, I've put fine details inside, as in carpeting in the interior of it, seat belts, engine wires like spark plug wires, as well as racing stripes on the hood. And no, these are not stickers. I painted these with an airbrush and a lot of tape. But you can't really see in there. Those are engine wires and everything I did to do all that. I painted the belts. Everything's replicated, exactly the same color as the actual truck itself. The wheels on this truck did not come with the model. I searched and found different wheels for the truck. Just really depends what your style is. If I'm replicating something, I want to get as close as possible. As you can see on this truck, maybe you can see it, I don't know. But as close as possible to the wheels. It's not 100%. It's hard to find 100% models completed, like exactly how you want it. But close enough, it'll work. When it comes to replicating, you really want to be as precise because that'll win you. At state, I've got a lot of comments for my detail I do on my models, not just paint. I got good things in paint, I've got bad things in paint. on my paint, there was one time I got first place at the county fair with this project, had bubbles in my paint, still won somehow because of my detail. The judge gave me a note card that I read afterwards that says your paint was built a little bubbled, but you had amazing detail. And that right there, it don't matter what almost what it looks like, as long as you have great detail. On this one here, I actually, on the side it says Silverado, I actually used a chrome marker, I don't have it with me right now, I used a chrome marker and chromed that Louis badge just for the extra side detail. With this one here, being that I don't have much pictures of it, it's actually on YouTube. So I watched many videos of this car just to see how much precise I can get. This car here comes with two options, left-hand drive or right-hand drive. I decided to do the left-hand drive, just like a standard driving around here, because that seems like more traditional. Plus, it's a lot more rare to find a car with a left-hand drive in it now, because when you trip them over here, you have to convert to the other side. So I did this way, and the judge actually commented on that. He says he likes the extra side there. On this one here, I use carbon fiber decals. They're really hard to see, really tiny, but they come in a decal sheet. You put in water, and they soak up the water, and they get soft. You lay it on the piece and fold it over how much you want it, just to hide the paint really. I put that on there, and you gotta wait for about 72 hours for that to dry. If you don't and you touch that, it will break as flake off sometimes. I've had parts where that flakes off, and believe me, it's a nightmare. You gotta do about 2 more times before you get it right. When it comes to showing your model, you can have 2 options showing it. Sometimes I show it in a case like this. Sometimes I show it just as a model. It depends what skill level is at. Some models I have skill level wise that require it to be in a case, and some don't. For this year, for my county fair project, it actually requires 2 models as well as last year. It requires 2 models in a case, replicating in some way, being the same model, like maybe like color, maybe like style, maybe both Chevrolets. Really. Last year I did this GTR R34 as well as doing a R35 GTR. Weren't the same color, but they're the same car basically, just a couple years newer. That right there will also get you over that limit and help the judges really point out which one they like the most. That's about all I have when it comes to models. I hope this informative speech would help you figure out what people do and what this hobby is like. Thank you.